Work Wellness Institute is transforming research into workplace performance and health. As an organization, we function throughout the complete cycle of turning research into practice, mobilizing knowledge as a research institute, community partner, funder, and educational provider. Our mission of creating safe, healthy, and inclusive workplaces for all is our driving motivation. Learning is a lifelong journey to adapt to the forever changing needs of the workplace. Whether you are a leader, a professional, an academic, or a student, we provide high-quality resources that are evidence-based, topical, and relevant to all industries. Choose the Work Wellness Institute as your learning journey partner and become a member to gain full access to our diverse knowledge mobilization programming, including lectures on demand, e-curriculum, 3 distinct certification opportunities, and more. Continue to learn and connect with the Work Wellness Institute and see how we can support transforming research into performance and health for your workplace.
Welcome to everyone, and thank you so much for joining our third panel of today's event, Navigating Balance, Work and the Realities of Chronic Health and Disability. This panel will be exploring how workplaces can better support women managing disability and chronic illness, while also and often navigating complexities such as intersections of gender, health, and work expectations. So again, I appreciate those who have already heard these housekeeping points, but I'm just going to run them through quickly in case anyone is newly joining us after our break today in session. So I'll point you to the toolbar that normally hovers at the bottom of your screen, and that's where you can find the closed captioned function, usually a little square with 2 C's in it. And there you can put closed captions on at any point during our session or event today and choose the language in either English or French, whichever is your preference. We also, again, have ways to communicate with us through this presentation. We will continuously have both the chat and question and answer function open. We encourage you to please utilize both functions at any time during today's discussion. I will be moderating and gathering those things, and we'll be sure to address them in the dedicated question and answer segment at the end. But again, you don't need to wait for that. If something comes to your mind, please send it through, and we will be sure to address it in that segment at the end. Again, the distinction, the chat function is open forum. Everyone in today's session will be able to see those thoughts, comments, resources, whatever you're sharing, whereas the question and answer function allows you to be anonymous if that's your preference, as well as directly sent to administrators of the event. So again, both are open at all times, and you choose which function is best for you. Hopefully you don't experience any, but if you do have any technical difficulties, we have IT support directly in this session. Just choose IT support in the chat and send them a direct message for support. We also have event staff member chat open for you in the main lobby. And again, if all else fails, please go to admin@workwellnessinstitute.org. Email us, we'll get you back up and running and support you as soon as we are available. We are recording today's session that will be available on the event platform, as well as there are additional materials that are accompanying our sessions, so do check those out. Some are uploaded already, some of them will be post-event, so please make sure to keep in tune with the lobby post-event, as we will have it open for some time so you can continue your learning after today. And again, if you're looking for that certificate of attendance for being at this session, you do need to have clicked join. If you're watching from the live stream in the lobby, we don't have that automation there. You just have to click join us here in our virtual room, and you'll have that automatic certificate of attendance. Thank you again for indulging me in those long, I know, sometimes housekeeping notes, but now on to the main event, and happy to welcome back Maureen Han, as well as our panelists for our next conversation. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll pass things to you, Maureen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And so I am thrilled to be moderating this session with these fine people from that and this panel that has been pulled together by Dawn Canada. So first, I want to do a brief introduction of all the panelists. So Mariah Friesen worked as the founder of Compassion Yukon and worked with the Yukon Anti-Poverty Coalition and Inclusion Yukon to put on the Accessibility Olympics, which led Art Carts to invite her as a disabled person to join as part of his expedition to the Yukon River. She was a truck driver, delivering all over the Yukon before her physical disabling car accident. She knows a little about a lot of things and was recently diagnosed neurospiciness. I like that. Um, our next panelist is Harmony Bognat. Am I saying your last name right? Bongo? Bongo.
Just Bongat.
Bongat.
Yes.
Bongat. Thank you. Is a queer pansexual poly-sober disabled ADHer who is a mixed race Filipino white settler living and working in what is colonially known as Westminster, BC. As a visibly disabled queer person of color, her intersectional perspective is central to her personal approach to accessibility, disability justice, education, and advocacy, activism, and harm reduction. She is eager to collaborate, share knowledge, and invite others in and help create spaces where all disabled people, all BIPOC, all 2S LGBTQ1A+ people can access what we deserve: community, support, respect, and joy. And I said one and it should say I. Sorry about that. Tara Slide Hall is a 54-year-old LGBTQIA+ woman with an acquired chronic illness disability. Before becoming disabled, she was very ambitious and hardworking, putting herself through CEGEP and university, studying biochemistry. At the age of 27, after a near-death experience, she went back to school studying nursing. She has never worked in either of these professions, mostly due to a lack of accommodations, prejudice, and her own inability to function. She has since owned a coffee shop, which she opened with the help of a very competitive SAGE SME grant that won the Coupe de Chapeau New Brunswick Award. However, she was hiding her disability at the time. So I want to welcome all of our panelists to today's session. I had the honor of meeting with you a little bit earlier this week, and I think that your insights are going to be extremely important for centering the conversation because we're talking to the people that we're talking about. So thank you so much for joining us. So before we get started with the questions, just as a bit of a background, Dawn Canada is the Disabled Women's Network of Canada that hosts and supports the Hummingbird Feminist Disability Coalition. And Dawn does this as a communication and collaborative platform for intersectional feminist practice, providing space and resources to support current and emerging leaders. The rate of disability for working aged women in Canada, according to Statistics Canada, is now at 30%. So that's almost a third, up from 16% less than 20 years ago. So that's a huge increase. Rates of episodic and chronic illness for women and gender diverse people are even higher than that. So we are going to really explore the barriers, explore some of the accommodations, and understand what it is that we want to share with the delegates in the room. Let's start by hearing from each of our panelists. I've introduced you, but I'd love you to share your name, a little bit about your lived experience, and how you would describe your employment journey and what led to unemployment. Just not as a I'm not as a spoiler, but all of our panelists are unemployed, and but they are still on an employment journey, and so I think that that's a very important piece. So I'm going to start. I'll start over with on my screen first. That's you, Harmony.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction as well. So yeah, I'm Harmony. My employment journey. Yeah, I started working when I was 11 years old. And I didn't even know there was an option to not work, I think, when I was that young. And then employment journey wise, I'll sum it up in as few words as possible, which is hard sometimes. But yeah, I had dropped out of high school in grade 10. So I went back to school when I had my son when I was 16, and finished like a high school education, finished college education, then went directly to work for a law firm in Vancouver. And I worked at one law firm for like 5 years and then another one for 5 years before coming off and being on long-term disability, which is where I am now. And the employment, I guess, that I'm able to do now is like panels like this. I could do like a 1 day event. I can host like a low sensory area. But all of those are like self-created modules because my I have a mobility device because I can't walk without that. I'm visually impaired and I also have like mental health and neurodivergency. And having all of that mixed up in one person just means that my access needs are pretty long to be able to like sustain full-time employment. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Harmony. Thank you. Complex, right?
Yeah, very.
Mariah, over to you. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about your lived experience and how you would describe your employment journey.
Well, much like Harmony, um, I started work at the age of 10 because I wanted to. I come from a place where being tough and ingenuity is a way of life, which has started to change since I was a kid. So it was always push through work, not show your pain. Um, I started my employment journey after just around the same time I was taking a welding course, and the comorbidities that I didn't know I had with CPTSD and neurospiciness of the ADHD. So yeah, how can I function when my brain's fighting itself all the time? My employment journey came to an end after the car accident, not just after the car accident, but because as a defense mechanism, when I am around a large group of people, my ADHD and coping mechanisms that were used as a child kind of got in the way and got me in trouble with the best job I've ever had, which is delivering propane, getting to drive bombs off road. It was kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. I then had to switch because they singled me out. I was the first woman they hired, and they thought I was high at work. So that began a whole other journey of discovering the correct meds and all of that, the correct balance, um, trying to learn coping skills that are for neurotypical people, very difficult. And personally, I can only do a part-time job where I'm allowed to sit and stand, because usually I end up finding a person I can't stand and it makes me depressed. And then I don't want to show up to work and then I get fired.
Yeah.
So the accommodations, I'm not even sure what I would need, but
Well, we'll come back. We'll come back to that. We'll
yeah,
come back to the barrier removal and what you would need to be successful. We'll come back to
yeah,
that
I'm
question.
sorry.
No, you're okay. You're perfect, Mariah.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
Oh, perfect. Oh, shucks.
But
Yeah,
we'll move on to Tara to introduce herself and just give us
okay.
a snapshot, and then we're going to come back to talking about some of those barrier removals. So Tara, over to you.
I adore you guys so much. I never know what I'm going to say at these things. Um, it's funny. I met Harmony and Mariah at a Dawn conference in Montreal, and we really hit it off. So we may seem very much alike, But people with disabilities the problem is we're all so different, right? We all have very different needs, which makes it so complicated. We all become problem solvers because the world that fits able-bodied people just doesn't fit us. So we have to become very creative, and some things just, I don't know how to make a job fit me. As Harmony and Mariah have said, I can imagine working part-time, and in Quebec, I'm allowed to. Since COVID, they've given us permission to work a little bit, which we were not allowed before. So yes, I am that. Sorry, that's really distracting me. Sorry, there's in the chat, there's a
comments.
technical
Yeah,
difficulty.
the chat. Yeah, sorry about that.
I also get distracted very easily. We all
Yeah.
do. So my employment journey is very much like Harmony and Mariah. I started working very young. Loved working. As my bio said, I studied and I did it all on my own, which I think was I think you did a panel earlier on burnout. My health is a bit of a mystery. It took 25 years for me to have a diagnosis, which also complicates things. People with disabilities, we don't necessarily have a diagnosis, which also makes things harder to figure out. I'm sorry.
You did a great job.
Very distracting. That's very distracting. We get distracted very easily.
The comments, yeah, sorry.
Well, not even that. The echo is I'm usually much better than this. But that's kind of the point of working with us. Something very small will deal well. The other day was so great and it went really well. And I was really looking forward to this. And then we get derailed really easily. So I hope I came off somewhat clearly.
You came off beautifully clearly for the first question, Tara. And we're just all hanging out together, right? So it's it's never a downward slide, it's just a forward path.
So, Mariah? But one thing I actually would like to say, if you don't mind,
please,
if you wouldn't mind waiting a second, Mariah. One of the things is the high unemployment rate among us. I love working, loved my job, loved what I did. I'll clean toilets if that's what it takes, and have done so. I'd love to work, but there is a lot of prejudice, I guess, some of it true. I'm not entirely reliable because my body isn't. But at the same time, like having a stomach flu is a Tuesday for me, so I'm going to come into work. If I don't come into work, I'm probably in the hospital. But when I was trying to find a job, like really, really looking, there were several things that put me off. One was the insurance papers, having people fill out insurance papers at the application. That I would walk out, because that was a pretty big red flag that I was not wanted. You don't need to fill out insurance papers in an interview. So that tells me you're trying to weed me out.
Right.
There's also the question of, do I reveal my disability during the interview? Legally, you can't ask, but I was fired from several jobs, downsized, or
call a spade, right? Like if you were fired, you were fired.
Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I was fired 3 times in the same day once because they talked to their lawyer and realized they weren't allowed. So they said, oh, never mind. And then they talked to the lawyer again and fired me. Like,
Yeah.
it was obviously about my disability. They found out the day before.
Yeah.
And I'd been there for 6 months. They'd promoted me repeatedly. And then,
Yeah.
it was very clearly, and it happened several times.
Yeah.
When you've looked for a job 3 times in a year because you've been fired for having a disability, it's exhausting and you give up. It's frustrating. You feel unwanted.
Of course.
So I think really companies can do a better job of maybe not doing that. But again, that was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that things have gotten better so that's just my 2 cents worth.
Perfect. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of that about your experiences, and so therefore what you see moving forward. And we'll dive into that in a minute. But I do see that, Mariah, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
One, Tara, I apologize because you said the chat thing was very distracting, and I apologize if that distracted you. And I guess the other thing is when you get diagnosed late, and sometimes you get stuck in your diagnosis, and so therefore this skill regression stays, can be very difficult not to get stuck to that diagnosis and not let it be exacerbated by all of the things that come along with being diagnosed late in the brain pan. So, yeah,
No,
that's it.
important stuff, Mariah. Thank you. Harmony, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the barriers that you faced when you've either tried to stay. We've heard a little bit from Tara. Mariah, we're going to come back to you. But about when you're trying to either enter or stay in the workforce. Like, what are those? What are some of the biggest barriers that you face? We've heard about so far. We've heard about ignorance, right? Ignorance of accommodations, and people thinking that folks with disabilities just can't do the work, right? So, knowing those are standards, what are some of the other things that you've experienced?
Yeah, thank you. So I've been a single mother for as long as I can remember, and I'm on disability payments through my CPP program. And I think honestly, there's two big barriers that I think of. Is one of them is if I come off of that. It's very difficult to get back on. I think they leave a grace period of about 6 months, but knowing me, I could survive a job for years if it was putting, kind of money on the table and buying food for me and my son. But I feel like coming off of disability is really, really, really scary because for one, I'm waiting on 2 surgeries, so I will need to take extended time off in order to leave time and space to heal from those, as well as like what happens. Like I don't have family, I don't have savings, I don't have friends that I can borrow money from. Like if things get really, really tight, a lot of my support network is also disabled, which means that we're all kind of low income. And I've been houseless before, and it's very scary. And as a disabled person, I can't even imagine the quality of life that I would face if I lost my home at this point. So coming off of disability and going into full-time employment sounds very, very scary. And the second barrier, I think, is just like maybe ignorance, but more just like a lack of knowledge about the ways that ableism shows up on the job. For example, I have ADHD, neurodivergent. That means that I might interrupt people when they're talking because I have bad impulse control. It means that I might not be able to follow a task from start to finish easily, that I'd have to like set up some sort of system so that I could do that in the same way that like as neurotypical people could do it. Different things like I need screen programs to read out my text because I'm visually impaired. Again, that's a cost to employers that I've asked for it actually once during a conference, and instead they printed out like large text sheets of things, which was I get like it worked, but it was
Yeah,
like that's not really what a screen reader takes whatever is on the screen and it reads it in a way that is intuitive, and you can't
right.
really force that like by printing stuff off. anyway. So, and different things like I have a mobility device and that needs to stay with me because it's my legs. If I need to walk, I need to stand up with that. I need to balance with that. And if I think about the little cubicle that I had at, the last place that I worked, which is a law firm, I definitely didn't have room for that walker there. So just the different considerations of how disability shows up in each of our lives. We might have kind of similar, like we can't have access needs met. We're scared about coming off of disability and still being able to support families. We're scared of disclosure because, of course, like people won't say that that's the reason that they're not hiring you in
Yeah,
the same way that they wouldn't tell somebody who didn't get an apartment, oh, you didn't get that apartment because of a certain reason. They would
right.
just push you aside because the job market is so heavily inundated right now. Um, yeah, with job applications.
Yeah.
So those are the
So
barriers that come to mind.
So either overt or unconscious biases, right? So sometimes people don't
Absolutely.
know that they're being discriminatory or that they're being biased against somebody, but some of the things
Yeah.
that you've talked about are actually overt and that they are
Yeah.
they're purposefully discriminating. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like when ableism, like, because a lot of us just like deny that ableism exists there, and it's like, well, ableism exists everywhere. It exists in me. It exists in like being able to accept feedback and being like, hey, that maybe was an ableist thing that I did, like playing on your phone. I need to play on my phone to stay awake sometimes. I'm
Right.
on 7 pharmaceuticals. If I need to stay awake for the hour and my medication's kicking in, and I have fibromyalgia as well. So when chronic pain gets bad, that's more exhausting because I'm having to like kind of fight through that in the background. And like that's a bad behavior. Like playing on your phone is thought to be ignorant and rude. And sometimes it might be, but sometimes it's just us like literally just trying to keep our eyes open for whatever gap of time we are required to before we can go into bed and collapse, honestly.
Thank you. Thanks, Harmony.
Yeah.
Mariah, did you want to talk a little bit more about some of the biggest barriers you faced about trying to either, stay or get back into employment?
A lot of it is possibly comorbidities with autism because I was diagnosed with the eight ADHD, and that didn't happen until after my car accident. But
Right.
looking back, um, it's usually behavioral issues that stem from that were stemming from untreated, undiagnosed things. Um, at one point, I was getting therapy for like paid for about 3 years. And that really helped. But what's actually helped is being on the right kind of meds, right? And now that I'm on them and I'm becoming to be more stable, it's really weird. And so these barriers, even though like we have comorbidities with the neurospiciness along with CPTSD, which is no joke. It's an injury to the brain and that's it. And unless the employers are my friends or people that I'm comfortable with, there aren't accommodations to be made. And up here we have like the Human Rights Commission that they have to meet that burden of not proof burden of like undue hardship, and it's really hard to say I'm disabled and not answer when they ask me why, because for some reason I'll either trust them or I just feel compelled to tell the truth. And
Mm.
quite often, like with the last job I had, the last true trucking job I had, actually two of them, from the propane one that was being singled out for using marijuana, and then because I was the weird one out making making inappropriate jokes at a safety meeting with someone from down south just because I'm surrounded by a bunch of dudes, and like if people are laughing, then I'm not gonna get hurt kind of deal. And being the only woman, still got paid the same, which is a miracle in its own right. But then I decided I had to leave there because anything, whether proof or no proof, that happened that would go wrong with the truck at the propane job, um, I would automatically be benched and tested, and
Wow.
nobody else was. And it only started after. And then I moved to Pacific Northwest Moving, which is slinging groceries, it's just everything. And because I couldn't be there all the time, I was having troubles because I was depressed because I lost the only job that I ever thought I could have a career in short enough to pay off the rest of my life, basically, like to finally feel like I'm an adult.
Right.
And having those behavioral issues come out, those are symptoms, not the actual problem. And not all
Right.
of us are lucky enough to get the right combination of meds. So, or for pain, like, right? Like with the ADHD, I have to be able to move around. And I also have to be able to have an employer understand that when I'm not doing anything because everything has been done, you know, like, or being fired because you don't fit in with the direction it's going, which is basically you're annoying, you don't follow rules, and we don't like that. So bye
So,
bye.
so Mariah, would you mind if I just summarized a little bit? Because what I heard you
Yep.
say is that a lot of barriers were internal, like your own personal barriers. But then,
Yeah.
but then once you got those sorted out, you experienced a lot of systemic barriers that were out there, attitudinal barriers, barriers of just not even wanting to see what the talent was that you were bringing to the job because they had put up that wall already.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. It's quite often because I care too much and I
Yeah.
get really enthusiastic about helping. And that can be frustrating to people who just want the job done the way that they
Yeah.
want it done. And it made me incredibly sad. And so I just, honestly, I've given up on trying to work, and I'm trying to focus on my own health,
So,
so that eventually that can happen.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Terry, yes, please go ahead. I was going to come to you next.
Thank you. Actually, you both kind of reminded me of some, or mentioned something that I think is quite important, is most of us are on some really heavy medications.
Mm.
All right, I'm going to tell some personal truths. I smoke marijuana to treat because the other option is opioids, which I take a lot of. That's not super attractive to most employers. I mean, some drug tests, which leaves me out right there because I'm one of the few people who function better on drugs. They're prescribed by a doctor, of course. But it also affects my impulse control. Depending on how many medications I've taken that day, it can make me very sleepy, but it can also make me act a little bit strangely. If I'm having a very bad pain week, I got to take a lot of medications and I will act a little bit strangely, which if you think is weird, trust me, I feel a lot worse because I'm embarrassed. So I don't really want to be in public when I know I'm acting like a crazy person. I am aware of it. Um, but I'm also a little bit high. Um, so it's really hard to stop.
Right.
You know, and I'm also not used to being around people. When
Right.
you have chronic pain and chronic fatigue, you spend a
Huge,
lot of time alone,
huge, huge. And I think that
and you end up being a
that's
bit of an oddball.
well, that's a lot. That's a lot of folks with disabilities, right? Like isolation and loneliness is huge.
Yeah, we're all a bit
And
weird.
you know, when we started the pandemic and people were like, "Yay, people with disabilities can work from home." It's like, yeah. But then, you know, that access to socializing is cut off. And you know, if that's where people went to get their to feel, and we heard this earlier in the first panel, that sense of joy and that sense of belonging, and that's cut off, then that further isolates, right? Harmony, I
We
see that
love
you've
the
got your,
pandemic.
pardon me?
We loved the pandemic. People joined us at home. I had more of a social life during the pandemic. Sorry, Harmony, but I feel the need to add this.
No, no,
Fair.
please,
Thank
please
you.
do. I mean, some of my friends, the first time they saw a drag show was during the pandemic because people were videoing them. And
Fair.
then like to pull that back after the world like goes back to normal, where it's like a lot of immunocompromised people cannot go anywhere where
Mm.
there's not masking. And a lot of clubs, like they're not masking up. That's not something that is kind of within their I mean, it's
I'm
within
still
their reach, but I
masking.
don't think they do it. I think that, unless that club is like run by a disabled person who is also immunocompromised, you don't tend to like to put those restrictions on like a big group of people unless you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, my
Oh,
cafe had a disability night. It was great.
Nice. Oh,
I
that's
Yep.
have
so sweet.
one thing to comment on the COVID thing
Yeah.
was that a lot of neurotypical people were like, "This is horrible," and I'm like, "This is my normal,
Yeah.
guys. Like,
Yep. This is just
come
Tuesday.
talk to
Yeah.
us for
Yeah.
help."
This is me for the last 3 years, being stuck at
25.
home and yeah,
And
yeah,
Harmony,
exactly.
did
25 years.
Oh yeah,
25?
yeah, yeah. The original hand up. Yeah, I was just saying like that, because we all mask, like we all have to like push ourselves to like try and be like this word normal or like to not get in trouble with employees for like the symptoms that we typically get in trouble for. And yes, it is true that like a lot of people get tired on the job. A lot of people need days off for the job, but when you're a disabled person, that is so much greater than someone else's. Like for a non-disabled person versus a disabled person's experience, I've found that like when I'm tired, it's not like, oh, I just need to sit down. It's like I will fall asleep standing up if I don't somehow sit down. And I think the cost of like, masking and like the amount of energy it takes, it means that we burn out faster. And like that masking can only take us so far. I tried to keep going back to work for 6 months after I started having my first really scary symptoms. And I really think that it made me, my doctor was like, you're gonna kill yourself. You need to stop working. And it wasn't
Same.
until exactly because I was like, I did not know that working wasn't an option. I worked when I was houseless. I'm in recovery now, but I worked when I was a functional alcoholic. Like, there was no time in my life that I was like, this is actually a choice. And now that, being 43 years old and being unemployed for what, like 15 years now, I still have dreams or nightmares where like I'm at work and I'm trying to figure out how to do a thing because I think part of me still feels guilty for not being able to work there, for not being
Wow.
able to be employed because we're looked at as less than because we are poor, but we are poor because of like the lack of universal basic income, because disability like payment amounts are not enough for us to be able to have the life. Well, and even when I'm in BC, so we had something called CERB, and they said that the amount for CERB was like $2,200. That was what it cost to live. Meanwhile, they were giving people on disability $1,100.
Yeah.
So it was like you establish a different quality of life for people who are disabled versus non-disabled. And once you
Yeah.
open your eyes to that, the apparentness of how deep the systemic ableism goes on, it kind of ruins you for everything because it's like, oh shit, well, I don't want to be a mechanism of that because the capitalist system, I'm failing it and it's failing me. But then how do we work? Like, how do we get that satisfaction that like, hey, we did a thing and we should be proud of it, regardless of whether or not it's actually like employment related. So,
Yeah, I remember that time very, very well and fighting for the cost of disability, right? Because there is a cost that, so it's not that, but what was indicated by those payments was the value.
yeah.
So people with disabilities were valued less than able-bodied people. And what does that say, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's also legal to pay us less than
Yeah.
minimum wage.
Hmm.
Yeah,
We
there
are
are ways
aware
around
that we
that,
are
right?
worth
Yeah.
less than everyone else.
Yeah.
It's been made very clear to us.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
So,
like, the benefits of having like a neurodivergent person, like say if I still had that job, I feel like for one, I had done the job with ADHD for 10 years and not known it because I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was in my 40s. So the fact that I could like multitask with like 17 different cases and I knew where the status was in all of them, like that is a skill that ADHDers have because we're constantly multitasking and constantly working on like the same thing but split up and disoriented. But sometimes that
so
works for the job.
well, let's pause on that for a second, Harmony, because what you've said is very, very important. It talks about the innovation of disability, right? Your lived
Mhm.
experience that has taught you stuff and that you can then apply to work. So can we, I know that that's not part of our questions, but can does anybody feel like that they can expand on that? Because we all have hidden uh, talents that come out because of our lived experience. I always think when I was a single mom, wow, did I ever learn how to not multitask, but I knew which balls needed to stay in the air and which ones I was allowed to let drop and just completely ignore. And that is a skill, that is a prioritizing skill that I don't think that I had before I was a single mom with all of those, different pieces of responsibility. So, Mariah, I see have your hand up. Is that to talk about this? Because I also see that Tara's nodding. And so if it's about this, then great. If not, then maybe we can go to Tara first and then come to you, Mariah. It's about this. Go ahead.
Um, I had a thought while Harmony was speaking about um the CPPD,
Mm,
and it was an important thought, and it's gone away, but
oh, sorry.
now we're talking about what is it we're talking about? Like, sorry, my brain, I've been up for way too long, so brain is
You're
behaving as
okay.
if stoned.
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. We're talking
Um,
about those hidden talents that we have because of our lived experience, right? So I'm wondering, maybe we could give Tara, and if you remember your point, Mariah, put your hand. Oh, you remember now. Go.
I don't remember the point, but on this topic,
Yeah.
on this one, I can add with the hidden talents. A lot of it is because you have the ability to move and
Mm.
sit down. Like truck driving was amazing for that. Like to be able to get in and out. Also paying attention to detail, being like so paying attention to detail so much. Unfortunately, without the provisions in place that someone who is diagnosed early for driving, but like these hidden talents of being able to recognize patterns, to go, okay, this is what happens, and then once you get into that pattern, it
Yeah.
is beautiful. And like even when I'm bored, but I have the energy for the novelty to just OCD out on like one little thing in work where you're just like, this is amazing. And also because I'm a people pleaser at work, I become an insanely good customer service person. It's
You know what
like,
it's like, you know what you want on the other end.
well, it's you're socializing. It's that's your battery. That's like you're getting to be able to be around people and not have to have a connection, but just be kind.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think that's all I have on hidden talents other than, you know, thoughts that are racing through my brain that I can't catch
Yeah.
because they're too fast.
We'll take the spotlight off of you, Mariah, and see if you can catch some of those. And Tara, do you have anything to add to this piece? And then we'll go back to Harmony.
So, yeah, so much, like so much. I don't believe that people change generally, but becoming disabled, you're actually living in a different body,
Mm,
which forces you to change. And pain is a great teacher. So I'm not going to go into the stuff that I personally like, sort of more, like I'm gluten intolerant, so I had to learn to cook gluten-free food kind of thing. But um, I've learned to sit in discomfort. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to deal with people who are different from me because everybody's different from me
mm,
and be comfortable with that. Um, I'm okay with judgment because everybody judges me.
mm.
I mean, everything has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really good at a lot of things, and I know people don't see that. That's okay. I do. My ego is invincible. Hell, I'm invincible. My mother calls me a cockroach because I won't die. Um, like nothing gets me down. I sat in pain for 10 years where I just spent that whole time just enduring.
Yeah.
So anything that's not that is awesome,
Thank
is
you.
wonderful. And I see people complaining about the weather, and I'm like, it's the worst you got?
Bring it on.
Exactly. I'm happy to be doing anything at all.
Yeah.
And I'll give it a shot. And also, I find a lot of people are really, I don't want to be rude, but I'm afraid I don't know how to say this nicely. They're kind of floppy and helpless, like they just can't figure things out.
Yeah.
And when you are disabled, like I use a mobility device too. And everywhere I go, there are stairs
Mm,
and I can't get in. So I got to figure it out.
yeah.
I got to figure out how to get to point A to point B, how to do things.
Those are huge transferable skills, right? Like those are huge, but we don't value them, right, in society. And so that's so I see
Well,
Harmony's hands up. So I'm gonna move to Harmony if that's okay. And then I think we have about just over 10 minutes left, and I really want to end on some positive pieces about hope and moving forward. So over to you, Harmony, and then we'll move on to the onto the last little piece.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Tara said and also confirm that, like, yeah, disabled people and Twinkies are going to be the only thing left after the apocalypse because we don't know how to die. We always find out new ways to like figure things out, and like within that, like that can be such a that can be such a job skill. Like n not only being a single mom but also being houseless. I found ways of innovating that people have not even considered because it's like, well, I've only got $5 in this, so I guess we have to like make something work. So that is like for because I do work in harm reduction. So if there's like an emergency situation, I'm cool and calm. I do the steps like because everything is an emergency. When I've fallen and I've been on my own, then I have to deal with it myself. And like even that is like easy to do because from practice of having to deal with so many whack-a-mole symptoms, the doctors
Mm,
are saying doesn't don't they can't do anything about. You have to be innovative and you have to be like on the ball when things are happening, and yeah, and that's a great skill. So I think, oh, and hyperfixation for being neurodivergent and hyperfixating. There was one client that had 74 shareholders, and I remembered every single name. Like
Wow.
for years, I still remembered those names because the hyperfixation, once something gets in there, it's in there.
Mariah, you wanted to add something before we go over to hope and moving forward?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the special skills that we end up with is compassion.
Mm,
It's really, really important that we have that compassion, and it's really sad that other people think that their compassion is compassion when it's really pity and sympathy,
yeah.
and not okay. But that compassion piece is so important, like because it involves passion as well, like passion for what we do, passion for our skills, passion for learning, that kind of stuff. And then that compassion of, as Tara was saying, that people are different and everybody's different, and that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying that. I often think about that compassion, empathy, all of those pieces, but it has to be real, right? Because you can see through it so quickly when it's not real, especially as somebody who is compassionate, right? On your end, and you can see through it in a heartbeat. You know when it's fake. So, and so it's almost like if you can't do it, just don't because it's an insult. So, so with that, and thank you very much, by the way, Mariah, for sharing. I know that was an emotional piece, and I know that we've shared a lot already today, and I just wanted to yeah, push love up, right? Thank you. So with that, we have probably just about 8 minutes left together. That went fast, huh? Yeah. So so and I want to go to each of you. I'd really love it if we can kind of keep within a couple of minutes. But what gives you hope for the future of work for women with disabilities? And Tara, I think we're going to start with you. We're going to go to Mariah, and then we're going to end with Harmony. What gives you hope?
What I see is a lot of the younger women with disabilities. First of all, they're getting an education. When I was younger, getting higher education as a person with a disability was very difficult. But I see a lot of younger people going to school and being encouraged to do so. And I do find that's the difference. I mean, it's the difference for able-bodied people. It's the same for us, even more so.
Mm,
I can't work as a cashier in a grocery store. I mean, nobody can anymore, but you get the idea. I can't do physical labor. It's never going to happen. I need an education.
yeah.
And so seeing younger people getting that education so that they can move on to get jobs is huge
Yeah.
and absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And also, like here in Quebec, they've put us on, I always forget what it's called, but a benefit plan where we're allowed to work.
Right.
For most of the last 20 years, I was not allowed to work.
Yeah.
They would just take that money back. And I mean, most places with insurance wouldn't hire me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of my medications is $600. That's just the first one. So
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I need my benefits. So now I can work with my benefits. I can do something like this without losing them. And so I have been making extra money, which has made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah.
So that gives me hope that,
Yeah.
I'm dipping a
That's
toe in.
no,
It makes me feel useful. It makes
yeah.
me feel like I'm contributing. And that maybe
Yeah.
there's a possibility and not just for self-employment.
Yeah. And Tara, I've heard the stories from lots of folks with disabilities going into their high school counselor and for advice. and hearing back, oh, here's how you apply for ODSP or any type of disability support. I just got a 5-minute warning. So Mariah, just super quick, if you could talk about what gives you hope for the future for women with disabilities in employment.
To be quite frank, right now I don't have a lot of hope, especially in the Yukon. I can only speak to rural Yukon where there is still a lot of old blood of, just make it over the snowbank. It's what we've been doing for years. And my hope is that people are becoming more and more introspective to be able to look at themselves, including employers, to be able to call out businesses on their disability bathrooms and things like that, because the city doesn't actually inspect those things. They don't, unless it's a city government. But I guess what I get, I'm really kind of in a bit of a despair state,
Ah,
and and I don't see a lot of hope for change up here because people we're like a decade behind
mm,
on lots of laws and a way of thinking because of that mentality of you just tough it out, you make it through. And the fact that our wheelchairs are not ever made for the snow that we have, that anyways, the point is I do have hope. It's there. I can feel it inside of me, but it's very faint. And I
yeah,
really hope that with more of these panels talking about getting policies for HR, um, and ways to work around the internalized ableism within ourselves and within our employers is amazing. The one thing that gives me hope now is that a lot of our population here, because it's so condensed, and our weather system, like our seasonal system, like midnight sun, and then at the height of darkness, it's like 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours of light, and that's it. Um, like so, I think that creates
yeah,
impacts on anybody who's neurodivergent. But the fact that we're starting to look more into this, we're starting, and also my therapists are willing to look, like take advice from people I've found online who are therapists for certain things. So
right.
I think that's what gives me a little bit of hope.
Thank you, Mariah. Thanks so much. Harmony, you're going to close us out.
Yeah, thank you. I think the one thing that, if I think about hope that I have today at this point, because it will always change, I might be at points, Mariah, I'm so sorry that you're going through what you're going through because hopelessness is one of the hardest things to have to deal with. And I think like, as we talk more on panels like this, as we like, follow people on TikTok, like the one thing that gives me hope is curiousness, because if people are asking what we need, then that means that they're thinking about us. And you know what? I think at the end of the day, disabled people who have been pushed aside and like kind of looked down upon, people are seeing that like for one, a lot of adults are getting diagnosed along with their kids, like for ADHD
Yeah,
and autism. So there already are disabled people in your workforce, in your at your company. They're just hiding because they don't think that they're going to be treated well or like be able to have what they ask for. But I guarantee that everyone here is like working with disabled or neurodivergent people. So just stay curious. Don't automatically say no. I had one person say like, if I give this to you, then I'm gonna have to give it to everyone. And I was like, that's not how consent works.
no,
Like
no,
you don't have to say blanket things like that. You're like, you don't have to give everything to everyone. But I get it because the old school mentality was that very
yeah,
much so. So yeah,
yeah.
just stay curious, I guess. And that gives me hope.
what we know in the disability community so well is the difference between fairness and equity.
Yes.
And true barrier removal, right? And with true barrier removal, equity and fairness doesn't even come into it because there are no barriers in the first place.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to call Elizabeth to come back on and wrap us up. But I wanted to thank each and every one of you so much. This panel for me grounded me from the conversations that we've already had today, and made sure that we understood that what we're talking about here are people. We're talking about people with real experiences, people with real feelings and understanding of life, and that we need to open up that way as well. So I want to thank you very much for your personal stories and for sharing everything. Thank you so much. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Absolutely. I will echo that sense of thank you and gratitude to all three of you for being here and sharing your experiences and being able to have such an in-depth conversation. And I really appreciate your time here today. And of course, Maureen, to you as well, as you guided us through that wonderful conversation. We are coming to the near end of our day, actually. So I will encourage everyone to stay with us for our final session, which is another opportunity to engage with our panelists. We'll be moving to that in just a few moments, where we have the opportunity to gather back together as a full community today with our panelists and really get into any final questions, thoughts, things that maybe we want to tease out after we've had some time to think about them. So very much looking forward to everyone joining us in that final session in a couple of moments. Just a final reminder that this was recorded and the event platform does have the recording available. And as long as you clicked join and came into our virtual room together, we do have that certificate of attendance that will automatically be sent to you as well. Just another reminder that that pop-up will come up as we end our session today for an evaluation survey. It's very short. I know some people may have had some issues. Just make sure that pop-up settings that you have going on allows you to get that pop-up message to send us your very valuable feedback to ensure what we've done today and going forward into our resources continues to be of value. And as mentioned, we'll be heading right into our next session that's going to begin at 12:35 for us in Pacific, 3:35 in Eastern Time. If you have a couple of moments and want to check out all of the wonderful functions I've discussed throughout today in our lobby, networking, exhibitor tabs, session details where you can find resources, and the lobby chat, hopefully we'll see you interacting there, and then see you all back again in just a couple of minutes. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you all in just a short minute or two.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this and reaching out to us, because that's amazing. Tara, thank you. And Harmony, Salamat, so much. I hope it's so good to see you too. And thank you everyone in the audience who's watching and listening so much. And we'll see you in 5 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of gratitude.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Mariah.
Thank you.
Continue to learn and connect with the Work Wellness Institute and see how we're transforming research into workplace performance and health at www.workwellnessinstitute.org.